Hey Jake, this is Adrian Gomez with 212 Athlete. We're going to work real quick on all of the specific things you need to do to increase your velocity. So right now, out of your back leg, you're sitting and squatting at about 106, which is pretty good. But what I'd like to see is your butt going back further this way to get down below 100. And if you can do that, you can see it from this side. Your knees, actually, you're leading with your butt, but I'd like to see this more directional, sitting back in line with that. You can see how far you sit that way. You actually sit this way. So I'd like you to sit back in a different position. That's going to help you collect yourself and drive your chest through. So looks pretty good, but I think the direction of your hips could change, and we can work on that. So back leg squat, pretty good, but something that you could improve on. Out of this, you're about 100 degrees. Let's see here. So 100 degrees is not bad. I wanted to get about 110. So you could push off for a longer period of time if you can get that leg right. That back leg's really going to help you support that. And if you're not doing that, then it's just kind of hard for you to drive. So 110, that needs to improve from 100 to 110. Let's look at this. As your knee sets up, as your front leg sets up, it's 130 degrees. And it kind of stays there. You can see how far up the ball is. Instead of coming through the ball, your arm comes straight up to get through that. And that's a slower position, but let's measure right here at a release point. 139, which is not bad. Not bad. So that's pretty good. Let's look at where your knee sets up. As you plant, let's see where your knee is. Let's see what happens to your knee as you go. So there is some side movement. You're internally rotated, and you can see how your leg pops out instead of driving forward. Your hips are not rotating as fast as they could because you can see where your foot's going, your back foot. And a lot of that has to do with your front knee. So theoretically, your hips should be driving first, but your foot is driving first, and then your hips go through. So your hips should be driving, and let's look at your back heel and see. Yeah, that's kind of, your back heel's slow to pop up. So I'd like your heel to pop up and over. That's going to push your hips through. The faster your heel rotates open, the faster your hips go. Okay, so internally rotated, that's an issue for sure. Okay, all right, let's look at your launch. And we looked at it a little bit earlier, but now we can draw a line. And we're just about an inch outside of that front foot, and I'd like to see further. And how do we get there? Well, we got to get there by not going up. Instead of doing that, you're going to drive through and not come up. That way, you're going to be able to get behind the ball a little bit better and have more power with your body, stay more collected. So launch, it's marginal, something you got to work on. Just slowly getting out there. It's gonna help a lot. So launch. Let's look at where your release point is. Your release point, you're what we call a C posture. A, B, and C, you're quite a bit tilted, and what that means is you're really, could be a lot of things. Now, your chest is right here, and let's measure it right there. Let's see what happens. Now you're going this direction. So that's quite a bit of a head change. Let's mark it right here and see how far your head goes all the way to here. So that's quite a bit of head tilt. That's going to really be hard for you to stay connected, and then also to keep everything in line. You do a good job of keeping it all together, but I think it could be even easier. So what I'd like to see is maybe you step back just a little bit in here. Move your head back to this position. That's going to give you, you're starting here and then you're ending there. It's a minimal movement. So what I'd like to see is you stay back into this, and that would help you get on track, if that makes any sense. Okay? So let's do that. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now so that's your posture at ball release. And now let's look at stacking. You do a good job of getting your upper body back, which is fabulous. Like I said, the knees in a weird position going this way, and I'd like to see it maybe be here so that you have something to push with at the end. Because you put your foot down way too early. You could have driven for a longer period of time. So that stack, I think you do a pretty good job of that. I don't think it's a huge issue, but I want you to work on stacking your lower half, and that's going to be a huge benefit to you. Okay, so let's look at your front glove. Let's look at your front glove. You do a really good job, but you can see how far you tilt. And that huge tilt is hard to keep that arm on track, but you do a really good job of that positive disconnection. So that shoulder's pinching very, very, very well. But you can see it go down here. So we could get, just be aware of that. It's pretty good. But I want you to be, and you have to be good with that front glove because of that tilt. So that's something you do naturally well because you're compensating because you're falling so far. So I'd like you to stay back further so you can be more efficient. But stacking looks pretty good. Front glove looks pretty good. All right, let's look at high elbow. So I think you do have a high elbow here. Your elbow's supported there. And it comes up quite a bit to get through. And so what I'd like to do is minimize that. If we could take it off 19 degrees, bring that down in this position, down to that line. You're going to be able to rotate a lot better through this with your chest. You might even take away the tilt, a little bit of the tilt, but you're 161 degrees, so high elbow, you do have a high elbow. That's something that I want you to be aware of and be careful with.